Hello, everybody. So, a lot has happened since the last time we talked politics. Let's take a quick look.
Mayhem in the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday as swarms of protesters supporting outgoing President Donald Trump stormed the building.
Everybody stand down! Get down!
Attacking police,
It's not protest, it's insurrection.
stealing computers and artifacts,
We're looking at significant felony cases tied to sedition and conspiracy.
and smashing windows.
Strange times, huh? Would you look at all of that? Now, people on the red team are saying that people on the blue team are exaggerating by saying that Trump tried to start an insurrection. But if you look up the definition of the word insurrection, that is exactly what he did. I want to hear both sides. I'd like to be impartial. But Trump lost that election by the rules that we were playing for that election. Biden got most of the mail-in ballots because Trump told his people not to vote by mail-in ballots. Trump had a little bit of a war going with the mail for a while. I don't know exactly how that war is going to end up, but I know on January 21st, I'm still going to get my mail. So I'm assuming that war is not going in Trump's favor, just like the election didn't go in Trump's favor. In my last video about the election, I said that I hope that Trump will not pull any shadiness afterwards and try to overturn the results of the election. That is exactly what he did, unfortunately. It was not successful for him. The whole attempt to overturn this election has been both pathetic and hilarious. They don't have a leg to stand on. All of their cases have been dismissed, some with prejudice. Sidney Powell had an entire Icarus story arc in just 2 months. She's now being sued by Dominion Voting for billions of dollars. I can't wait to see how that turns out because I really think that that's just going to be the icing on this cake. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. In addition to Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, was also on that dream team of people that were going to fix a crooked election. He spent months gallivanting across the country with women of questionable morals, spreading lies about what actually went down. Finally, Giuliani was felled by COVID, and now Trump refuses to pay him. This is the thing about Trump. He doesn't pay his people. He doesn't take care of his people. Now, I do try to stay as impartial as possible because I understand why Trump is in office. I completely understand why he's in office. But the man himself is not worthy of respect. He sold his people out. He won't even pay Giuliani. Giuliani is a pariah now. Now, he was kind of a pariah before. He was like half pariah before. But now he is full on pariah. No one wants anything to do with him. No respectable person is going to hire him again. And he can't even get the legal fees from Trump, from his last job that he may ever work. That's the kind of person Trump is. He's a user. He's like these cult leaders. He just uses his members up and then spits them out. In fact, this whole insurrection thing, I suspect, this whole stop the steal is just to milk a few more dollars out of his donors before he's no longer president. And let's be honest, he's an old man. People are talking about 2024. 2024? Do you think he's still going to be around in 2024? Do you know how long 4 years is, especially for someone constantly fighting legal battles? That's a long time. That's a very stressful time. And he's already old. The chances of him being around to run a campaign in 2024, let alone serve as president, that's absurd. I feel for those people who supported Trump at the beginning. In fact, when he stood up on the Republican debate stage and said that he gives people money and that because he gives people money, they take his call, I applauded from my house. He was finally telling the truth about how crooked politics really are. I know that it's coming from this two-bit con man. I understand that he has the freedom to say these things because he inherited so much money that any bad decision he makes is just swept under the rug. There's no consequences for any of his actions. He is one of these billionaires that people complain about. But still, he said it. Everybody else needs the system to support them so they can run a campaign. A lot of these politicians spend most of their time begging donors for more money. It's beneath the office. That having been said, the insurrection on January 6th took it too far. Just don't let this insurrection make you forget that the country is still run by a handful of oligarchs who have conspired many times against the American people. Many times just in the past 20 years. How many people were addicted to opioids? The government looked the other way while one oligarch family got a significant portion of the country addicted to drugs and then profited off of that. How many of these oligarchs robbed people blind of their life savings just 12 years ago? So that's the environment Trump is coming out of. He didn't just come out of nowhere. Now the DNC came at this with everything is just fine. Joe Biden won on we're going to return to normal. Normal? Allowing your country club friends to get the country addicted to heroin? That's normal? If that is normal, why would anyone want to return to it? Full disclosure, I'm Team Bernie. The reason I am Team Bernie is because I believe that public college needs to be free and that we need Medicare for all. Right now, the American people are so dumb and unhealthy that it poses a serious national security risk. So before we do anything else, we need to fix that. So that's where I'm coming from. And that's why I can kind of understand where these Trump people are coming from. Because Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were the only people in 2016 saying, hey, something is wrong. In fact, in the 2020 primary, Bernie came out again and he said, look, everybody, things are still messed up. And of course, the Democratic establishment conspired to throw him under the bus. That was a thing, but it was done within the technical rules of the Democratic primary. So that's why we didn't storm the DNC. Technically, Joe Biden won the primary, even if there was fishiness going on, and he won the election. Now, Trump is no Bernie Sanders. Trump does not believe what he is saying. He's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. He's saying everything. Bernie Sanders actually believes what he is saying. Trump's policy is based less on his actual belief system and more on what people want to hear. There is this story of the smartest horse to ever live. The horse's name is Clever Hans. And this horse knew the answers to all kinds of questions. This horse knew everything. This horse would tour with its trainer and people would ask it questions. And Hans, Clever Hans, would tap out the answer. And people had no idea what was happening. How can this horse be so clever? Well, they figured it out eventually. See, the horse didn't know the answers to anything, but his trainers did. And the horse was reacting to his trainers' cues. His policies came from Steve Bannon, who we discussed briefly in the last video.
Steve Bannon sees disruption as power.
One of the greatest strategic minds that I've ever been around.
So Trump went out and he went to these massive rallies and he said a lot of things. And whatever people reacted to, he would repeat. Those things became his catchphrases. Does this sound familiar? This is like the computer algorithm. It shows us everything, and then what we like, it shows us more of. And so that's how it finds our tastes. And that's how Donald Trump found the tastes of the people, of his particular audience.
And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal.
Now, it's ironic that Donald Trump is the social media president, and he basically behaves like the algorithm. See, Trump is like Clever Hans. A lot of you will say, Trump is not very clever. Do not compare him to this magnificent horse, but Trump is clever. Trump is clever by horse standards, not very clever by man standards. But he's clever enough to be president right now. And if he were a little bit more clever, maybe he would be leaving the office with some kind of dignity. But he is not that clever. He is only a little clever. And honestly, if he was still surrounded by someone like Steve Bannon, he probably would have been elected again. See, this whole last year, I was afraid that Trump would send everybody huge stimulus checks in October. But he's not clever enough to do that. He tried to do that after he already lost the election, like there were do-overs. I actually feel kind of bad comparing this beautiful horse to Donald Trump, but you get the analogy. The algorithm analogy, the thing that just shows you what you want to see. And that's what he was for his followers. And that's what he still is for a lot of his followers, even though he completely abandoned them last week.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore. And that's what this is all about.
The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay.
I know I said I wanted to stay objective. I'm going to say a pretty vain and regressive thing right now. But I feel that Donald Trump is a clown because he spends an hour every morning putting on a full face of makeup. Plus, he does a swoop, a dyed swoop. That takes time. That takes hairspray. That takes skill. I know how long hair and makeup takes. And you can't do that every day and still be president. That's an hour every single day. Girl. And I know men can wear makeup. This is 2021 and men can wear makeup. But he comes off as a manly man, manly Donald Trump. He thinks he's Rambo or something. He is not Rambo. He is an old queen with bronzer that doesn't match his neck. Now, that having been said, the people who stormed the Capitol were so desperate and brainwashed that they followed this clown.
Our country's worth fighting for every day until this election is over and Donald J. Trump is put back in that White House 100% indefinitely.
This clown who's wearing a full face of bronzer and a dyed hair swoop. And yet these people followed him. They didn't see anything wrong with him. They can't see any of his flaws. They just see this image he has put out. This is why he's a bit of a cult leader. Once this all settles down and we see Trump's metaphorical death throes, I will do a Rate My Cult video on the cult of Donald Trump, on the MAGA people. Right now, I kind of want to see where this goes. Does he end up in prison? Does New York try him? Does he flee the country? Anything's on the table with this man. Back to these people who stormed the Capitol. Anyone in that building broke the law. There's reports now that some congressmen may have given them tours. If that happens, those congressmen broke the law too, and they should be prosecuted. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. When the government wants to charge you with something, they will charge you with something. Now, yes, these no-fly list public freakouts have been fantastic TV, but it's not enough. Now, in this situation, I'm going to admit I'm being a little petty. And that is because my family went through something similar. But 20 years ago, my brother protested the Republican National Convention in which George W. Bush got the nomination. Do you remember how shady that was? They tried to give him 30 years on some BS charges. And thankfully, the ACLU was there. They sent these lawyers and they got my brother out. And in the few weeks that my brother was locked up, they didn't really tell us where he was at first, by the way. He was just sort of missing. He came back with lumps all over his head, and you could tell that something wasn't right. Something had happened. Like, he had a severely traumatic experience on the inside. Now, the absolute pettiest part of me, that part says, treat these people like you would a black guy with dreads. Be fair. Maybe we change our ways after we deal with the insurrectionists. If I'm going to live in a police state, I want that police state to beat everybody equally, regardless of the color of their skin. That's why we protested this summer, isn't it? How do you think these people that stormed the Capitol should be dealt with by police? Now, the Capitol got stormed and that was a complete mess. But since that happened, something more interesting has happened. And that is the social media platforms have banned Donald Trump. Even social media platforms that Donald Trump didn't act up on have banned him. What are the implications of all of the social media sites banning this one person? Here's an interesting thing. Twitter took off Donald Trump. It did not take the POTUS account down because Donald Trump, the man, was a disaster. Whereas the office of the presidency still remains intact. See, this is what Donald Trump never understood about what it means to be president. You are no longer yourself. You represent 330 million people. You're like the Pope at this point. You're like the Queen, the royal we. There's not me. There's not I. There is the United States of America. That's what I loved about Obama. Obama was not perfect. Obama did a few drone strikes that were questionable. Obama maybe should have prosecuted more bankers. But the thing I loved about Obama is that when he got out there and he spoke, you could be proud to be an American. He spoke eloquently. He respected everybody. And I don't think he cursed except to call Kanye a jackass. But for the most part, Obama understood. When he was president, he wore the magic cloak of the presidency, and he gave up himself for the office. And that's what Donald Trump never did. He never understood what it meant to be president. He just thought it was a joke. And yes, we're living in a time where everything is a joke, but we are still the most powerful nation there ever was. And we deserve a president. We deserve a person to get out there, and whether or not he's having a good day or a bad day, to act right. That is one of Trump's major flaws, is that he could never separate himself from his job. Not only was the presidency about Donald Trump, but the whole country became about Donald Trump, and it's just not that way. Anywho, there is also some controversy as to whether Twitter and social media have the right to ban Donald Trump. Now, Twitter was initially started as a way for teenage girls to fawn over Justin Bieber, and it has since gotten completely out of hand and almost destroyed our country. Because America, we are the goofiest superpower there could possibly be. But now, it is where it is. We are where we are, and Twitter has decided that they've had enough of Donald Trump. Now, people say, you can't ban him. He is a sitting president. Now, like I said, the POTUS account. But even that aside, Twitter can ban Donald Trump. Section 230 explicitly states that they can ban him if they're doing so in good faith. Basically, what it says is that no interactive service provider can be held liable for what people on its platform says. And that's why I can put videos out over YouTube and people can't sue YouTube for what I have said. Now, people on the red team say that if Twitter isn't going to apply the same standard to everybody, that it should be exempt from Code 230. But if you would just scroll down, you will see that Section 230 clearly states that interactive service providers can ban people for sharing content that is obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, excessively violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, whether or not such material is constitutionally protected. I'm not sure what otherwise objectionable means, but I'm pretty sure if you look it up in the dictionary, you see this picture. So, according to the law, as the law is written, and we are a country of laws, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whoever, can ban any material it wants if it's acting in good faith. And after last week, it's kind of hard to argue that they are not acting in good faith. These people, these law and order people, beat a police officer to death.
They were waving the thin blue line flag and telling us, we're not your enemies while they were attacking us and, kill one of us.
This whole summer, they're coming after Black Lives Matter protesters for disrespecting the police, and they beat a man to death. They beat him to death. What a way to go. So I guess the red team feels that we need a public forum. We've never had a public forum. Where? Traditional media has not been a public forum. If you want a public forum, you got to go to the park and scream at people, which people used to do. Soapboxes, that's where they started. That's the public forum. But when you go back even 20 years, there is no public forum. It's all commercial press. It costs money to get on TV. It takes time to break into traditional media. Twitter is what it is because it has the best tech and it works the best. It's a private platform that Jack Dorsey and the people who worked with him developed. They're just done with him. And Twitter has a good reason, because what Trump is saying is inciting violence. What he said was that they are stealing the election, that there is no democracy. Any person who understands America will know that those people kind of had to go to the Capitol. What if Trump was successful and had overturned the election? You know how many people would be at the Capitol? That's kind of what we do. That's kind of what Americans are proud of, our democracy. So by Trump lying like he's doing, it is inciting violence. Just because Trump is too unsophisticated to understand what he's doing, it doesn't mean that he gets to do it. Now, if Trump really has something to say as a sitting president, he could break into the airwaves and say it, but he doesn't have anything to say. Real quick, I would just like to mention Parler, which has also been taken down off of the Amazon servers. Now, Parler is not an alternative Twitter. The tech on Parler is terrible. It's really hard to use. It's like a 20-year-old message board. I don't know why there is this big hullabaloo around Parler. It is not a good app. The most entertaining thing about Parler is watching the blue team trolls go and harass the red team on Parler. There is this one guy who really told them that if they turned themselves into the police and gave a full confession, Trump would pardon them all individually. And then someone from Parler had to be like, no, he won't. This guy's a troll. Because you have to tell them because they'll believe that. That's so sad. So Google and Amazon took down Parler because they're using it for illegal activity. If you're going to be doing that kind of stuff, you got to go to the dark web. And Twitter was allowed to take Trump off because he is otherwise objectionable. And it's their app, so they get to decide what otherwise objectionable means. And really, if Parler goes down, they're doing everybody a favor because everyone just confessed to everything they're doing on a message board. That's why you're supposed to use payphones. That's why the mob used payphones. You don't just give them the material. Also, where was the NSA? What did Snowden go down for if it wasn't for the NSA capturing everything we say over the phone? Where were they now?
We received a lot of intelligence, like I said in my statement, a lot of intelligence and information through all different means. So all that information was shared with our partners, and then we went from there.
I don't know about this deep state. I think they could be doing it a lot better. I think the deep state needs to deep state a little bit better. Like, where were all the spies? Where was everything? I'm disappointed. Unless this was on purpose, I'm not saying anything. That's all I'm going to say. So if Twitter is banning people who start violent insurrections, okay, I'm fine with that. When it starts banning people for much less things, just for having opinions, especially opinions that they can back up with facts, then I've got a problem. And then I'm thinking maybe we need to have a new app. So we'll see. Will Twitter allow for legitimate protests in the future? Only time will tell. So that's it for now. This video could go on for 10 hours, but it won't. I will do another video about the impeachment and inauguration when all of that goes through. However, I think we can all agree that the past few weeks have been fantastic TV. I mean, who's not been watching the news? Come on. Subscribe.